People of Reddit who got shot or stabbed, what's the sensation like? Serious. I got shot in the hip. Felt like a burning sensation, and I couldn't put any weight on that leg. The pain at that moment was a weird 6/10. Within minutes there was an ambulance. Lucky. I'm pretty sure they gave me a shot of morphine in the ambulance because the pain leveled out to about a 4 until they wheeled me into the operating room. Where were you when you got shot? From the way you tell it sounds like some sort of accident. Hope you recovered. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Lol, I had to have a leg extension and hip replacement surgery, but yeah, I've recovered. It doesn't hurt at all now. Thanks. Does anything feel weird? Any strange feeling in the inside or something? If not, thank goodness for that. Nope, it feels normal now. I've been shot before, and you don't feel a thing, except the sensation of being punched. Then about 2 to 5 minutes later it's a nearly unimaginable sensation of burning and pain I can't describe from the location. Then you get cold and pass out, or so I did. I have also been shot. That's exactly what I felt. It was almost like a warm shower on that one spot mixed with a slight burning sensation. Then the initial shock wears off. I wanted to pass out at that point. I didn't. I was stabbed on a bus in Seoul, Korea as a teenager, with a pair of scissors. I put my arm up to protect my face as that's where they were headed. It went straight in through my elbow. It burnt like a searing pain. Who stabbed you? Another teenager. No idea who or why. Bus was coming to a stop. He was sitting in the seat in front. He launched over the seat and stabbed at my face. I threw my arm up over my face to block it. Had to pull the scissors out myself as he got up and ran off the bus as it came to a stop. I'm not Korean. We were expats living in Korea at the time. Bullet wounds are like a weird burning sensation. Stab wounds sometimes you don't even feel. A brawl broke out at a bar one night. Some guy I didn't even know squared up on me and managed to punch me, so I thought, right below the ribcage. Someone pulled out a gun and started firing. I jumped on my crotch rocket and hauled ass out of there. A few minutes later, as I'm flying down the highway, I started feeling woozy. I pulled over and remember I couldn't stand. Then I fell over. Last thing I remember is red and blue lights followed by someone flashing a light in my eyes. Turns out a cop thought I was a drunk rider, and intended to pull me over, but I pulled off to the shoulder before he had the chance. He thought his suspicions were confirmed when I stumbled off the bike and fell on my back. He was in the process of turning me over to cuff me when I guess his hand was on my torso and he noticed it was drenched in blood. Turns out that punch was a stab and I was flying down the highway, leaking like a punctured oil pan. Long story short, the initial pain was minimal. The recovery, though, fuck my life. I'm normally not one for edits, but a lot of people are asking me the same questions. So, recovery. It was quite a while back, so all I really have now are some gnarly scars. I had surgery to repair the intercostal vein that was hit, along with the other damage. I caught multiple infections in the hospital. Even after they sent me home, I'd developed a hematoma that required a pump to drain. On the bright side, I was sky high through the majority of it. Being shot. Which time? Lol. I've been grazed twice, taken a ricochet to the shin once, and have actually been hit once. In the moment, the ricochet probably hurt the worst. I was with some friends at a party sitting on the tailgate of a truck. Some drunken idiot decided now would be the perfect time to show off his new gun. I had no idea this was going on. As I'm talking to this girl I hear the usual crack of a gun, a ping, then like someone took a tire iron to my shin before I could even process what just happened. The other incidents were as I was running from gunfire. I barely felt them and didn't realize until after what had happened. I got stabbed 3 times with a serrated kitchen steak knife. Hit my spleen, stomach, and heart. It was dark. A little fellow came at me swinging punches. I was still trying to defuse the situation. Didn't want it to come to a fight, so I blocked the punches by slapping them downward. But he had a knife in each hand. I didn't feel the stabs. Just felt like light punches to my torso. He turned and ran. I looked down and saw that I was drenched in blood. Walked a few steps and sat on the curb. Turned to a panic-stricken woman next to me and said, "I can't believe how tired I am." Then, asleep I went. TLDR. I didn't really feel the stabs. I got stabbed in the gut once. I was a dumb angry kid fighting with other dumb angry kids. One of them pulled a knife and just stabbed me. He wasn't really aiming, I don't think, and I honestly didn't feel it, really just saw the blade get pushed into my gut over by the hip. I froze for a second, then punched the guy and took off running. I probably made it about 10 to 15 feet before I collapsed just holding the knife. Luckily I had some friends there, they just kinda surrounded me while one of them called an ambulance. Last thing I remember was one of my buddies shouting something before I passed out. Woke up a few days later in the hospital and I couldn't bend my abdomen at all. I didn't really feel any pain, just a constant throbbing around the area, but it did hurt like hell whenever I tried to bend over. Doc said there was no major damage done, the blade missed my intestines by about a centimeters. Dang, you're a G for still throwing a punch after getting stabbed. I'm pretty sure it was just a reaction, haha. My fight or flight kicked in, and I pulled a Jack Sparrow. I fought to run away. I got shot 6 times in a setup/robbery type situation almost 10 years ago. Went and bought some weed, and the guy I bought it from called his buddies that robbed me when I left. I got 1 in the armpit/shoulder, 2 in the chest, 2 in the stomach, 1 in the hip. I didn't necessarily feel pain anywhere but my hip where the bullet lodged into my hip bone and cracked it. I was so amped on adrenaline that I actually got back up and walked a few blocks bleeding everywhere to where the hospital was. Scared the entire lobby of people all to hell, but it didn't really hurt until I woke up from surgery a few days later. The broken ribs from the 2 in the chest were arguably worse than anything else. Holy frick, dude, and all over just some weed too. Happy you're still alive, my man. That sounds crazy. About $50 worth at that. They ended up doing the same to a few other people and actually killed one of them, so they're all sitting in a cell now. As far as the still being alive part, I'm definitely happy about that too. I struggle with it a bit because depression and body issues from the scars, etc. But I'd do it again right now if it meant I got to become a dad and see my daughter still. Florida is a crazy place, so yeah, I'd say fair assessment. Why did they have to shoot you though? I mean, you were clearly outnumbered and all they had to do was pull a gun and threaten you, if that, in order to get your stuff. Honestly, I would have given it to them if they asked, gun or not. They didn't even need to threaten me, as that's just kinda who I am. Unfortunately they did neither ask or threaten, just shot. So in reality, I can't really answer that question. In fact, I've asked it a few times in slightly different words. I wish I knew, honestly. Could have been my reputation for fighting. There was a lot of fist fights in the area, and I was good at it. Could have been my easygoing nature that I've always had. Despite my environment, I'm a very giving/loving person by nature. Could have been anything. I don't know if I'll ever know for sure. Have you ever wanted to go see them in prison and ask? I'd understand if you just want to leave it behind you. Just curious. I've thought about it, can't deny that. With my record, most of which has been expunged at this point, I'd be curious if I'd even be able to, but to be honest, I probably would if I ever got the chance. Do I actively want to see them? No. Should someone ask me if I want to? Of course. If for no other reason than to understand, I suppose. When you get hit with a shotgun, loaded with birdshot, at my back, on accident. Had some in bed, and had to be dug out. It doesn't feel at certain points, but more like getting hit with a low speed car all over. I passed out from shock, and when I woke up I wasn't in pain anymore cause they were already dug out, and I was on pain meds till they finished healing. Still have faint scars on my back, that aren't very visible, but you can feel the texture change. What happened? How do you get hit with a shotgun and live? A hunting accident caught my, now ex-friend pointing it at my back, and I told him to watch it. It's not loaded and it's safe, deed. It's fine. Bang. That moron. He tried to kill you. Yes, that's literally attempted murder. Got stabbed by my dad once when he was drunk and angry about something. Can't remember what, because unfortunately he was drunk and angry a lot. I saw it coming and was terrified the whole time, so I'm not sure if that amplified or lessened the pain. I was stabbed in the shoulder, and it wasn't particularly deep, but it felt like being stuck with a needle, only wider, if that makes sense. It wasn't a particularly pleasant experience, and it's certainly not one I'd like to repeat. Does a hockey skate count? More of a slicing and dicing than the old in out, but still. Hockey game. I was around 13 to 14, so right around that age where on the ice some kids have hit puberty and are damn near 6 and other kids who haven't and are in the 5 range. I was a scrappy kid on the ice, but wasn't physically all that big. Just your average young teen. Open ice. This tall awkward player on the other team was lining me up in the trolley tracks. He was the kind of player who wasn't entirely solid on his new height. He was lanky and did not have great balance. Anyways, he lines me up to hit me, and I just drop my shoulder and take it. We both go down in a pretty solid hit, legs all tangled up in just a goofy few seconds, while we got ourselves together. He got up first, stepped over me, and planted his skate on the inside of my thigh and pushed off, none the wiser. I didn't feel much, head was still ringing from the hit. Got up and skated around for another 15 seconds getting back in the play. Felt what could be best described as loose hanging meat. But it was still somewhat held together due to my hockey gear. I looked down and realized my white hockey socks were just covered in blood, which is the only reason I realized what happened. Before this, the pain was just a light stinging. I skated to the bench, yelled "oh shoot," in a terrified way. The pitch and squeak of my voice clued the coaches in that something wasn't right. So they get me to the locker room, start taking my gear off to see how bad it was. A mother in the stands was a nurse, so she rushed into the locker room, takes a good look and turns green, which wasn't a good sign in hindsight. My inner thigh was just sliced wide open and hanging out. Pain kicked in, was not a clean cut due to the nature, so the pain was all over the place as the cut was pretty jagged. The cut itself, when it happened, wasn't too bad, but the aftermath was the worst. After I realized I could see the meat inside my leg. Got stitched up fine, came real close to the femoral artery, which would have probably taken things to more dire manners. TLDR, got sliced open by a hockey skate, filleted open. Hurt like hell, freaked out, got stitched up, back on the ice 4 weeks later. I wasn't shot or stabbed, but I was in a Humvee that was blown up in Iraq in 2007. I use the word blown up lightly. Crew got a couple Purple Hearts, but nothing major happened. Vehicle was disabled, but we were able to salvage all our gear. I was in the rear left seat, behind the driver, during one summer day in northeast Baghdad in 2007, right in a tiny little sunny area filled with anti-coalition sentiment. I remember our convoy turned down one road with no people, and I immediately got an eerie feeling. I even said boom in a low voice, which I don't remember, but everyone in my vehicle remembers. We were fourth vehicle in order of movement, and our convoy was trying to get the hell off this road, which we knew was going to be a problem the second we turned onto it. We were all following the tire tracks of the trucks ahead of us, assuming that any pressure plate activated IED would blow up on truck #1 and everyone else would be basically safe. Well, right after I said boom, which I don't recall, I had a distinct sensation of falling briefly, and a bright flash, even though I don't think there was a flash in the truck, but I could be wrong. The back half of our truck lurched up in the air. I was probably knocked out at this point. I had a laptop sitting in my lap which smashed into my face, and I was out for a few seconds or so. I remember waking up, sort of. Ever jump into ice cold water and have trouble breathing and you're shaking like crazy everywhere? That happened. I was trying to figure out WTF was going on, and I could distinctly smell burned hair. That's what slightly charred human flesh smells like, I think. My eyes were stinging. There was dust everywhere, and I panicked. I didn't know where I was, or what I was doing there. I grabbed my weapon, and opened the door to my truck, and got out, and fell down, and there was blood pouring onto the street mixing with the dust. I'm told there was gunfire and our folks were returning fire, but I don't remember this. I think I was either in shock or temporarily deaf. People from the truck behind ran out and grabbed me, and we started recovery procedures for the truck once we fought our way out. I don't remember it all that well, but sometimes I still see it, particularly when trying to sleep. The pain was in my head and face. I had 2 big shiners and my nose was smashed up, and my lips were cut up from my own teeth. My back hurt a bit. Recently this manifested as a pars defect, which sucks. But at the time it wasn't pain, even though it wasn't a traditional fireball like in the movies. But all I remember is the shock of it all. In my dreams I always see bright flashes, so bright they hurt my eyes, and even when I wake up my eyes hurt. And sometimes I imagine loud booms, but in my dreams it's actually like the absence of noise, like someone just shut off the TV and everything goes totally silent. It's crazy. I was shot with a .300 Magnum while bear hunting a month ago. I got hit in the right thigh, femur fracture, which is already known to be one of the most painful things as is. It feels hot. Actually, I didn't know what had happened at first. One second I was standing there, another I was on the ground unable to move. It was really confusing. The best way I can describe it is like it's warm, like a localized warm shower for a few moments. The shock set in pretty quick. I couldn't really feel the pain for about a minute and a half. That's when the other hunters started having to reach in and put pressure on the veins and arteries so I wouldn't bleed out. That hurt like hell. It's a very difficult sensation to describe, but it was a stabbing pain all over the wound, but the rest of me went numb because of hemorrhagic shock. I could feel my muscles shutting down and the blood being pulled. I went very lightheaded and they had to keep me from passing out. Your fingers start to tighten up and you can't move. It's a very scary feeling. Then they put the tourniquet on. Oh god. If I never feel one of those again it will be too soon. That was the most painful thing I have ever experienced. It has to go right above the wound and shut off blood flow so you don't keep losing blood. That made everything worse, and though I knew I needed one, it was so painful I screamed bloody murder when the EMTs put it on. Essentially, your body shuts down everything to try and save itself, but the side effect is that you can only feel the excruciating pain of the massive hole in your leg. As much as I knew passing out would make it 10x worse, I really wanted to. I can answer questions as well, if anyone has any. Edit. To anyone that replies about my hunting and wants to chastise me on it, there's a special place in hell for people like you. I came here to talk about my experience with a bullet hole in my leg, not to discuss my lifestyle choices. Let's start with how you got shot with a .300 Win Mag. Well, do you want to hear the whole story of everything that happened, or just how I got shot? The how I got shot was, my buddy and I got out to shoot a bear. We start loading rifles. I run ahead. I was planning to shoot it. He was going to back me up, and his bolt jammed when he tried to close it. Usually he's pretty good about keeping it down and away, so I didn't expect anything. But when he pulled the bolt back to try again, he pushed it in. Other hand swings the barrel up just enough, and it slam fired 20 feet later. There's a bullet hole in my leg and 5 inches of femur missing. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more future content.